Incoming transmission. Radio Rebellion.
The Mandalorian, Star Wars' first live-action TV show, had a lot riding on it, and it delivered big time. It became TV's number one show pretty quickly and became part of our culture with their secret weapon, Baby Yoda. Even if you weren't a Star Wars fan, you knew who Baby Yoda was. Okay, without further ado, Chapter 1, The Mandalorian, directed by Dave Filoni and written by Jon Favreau. Dave Filoni does great in this first episode and his first time directing live-action Star Wars. We're used to him doing the Clone Wars and Rebels, but his first foray into live-action Star Wars starts out with a bang. It sets up the atmosphere and what the audience should expect from this TV show. We get introduced to the Mando pretty early on, and he sets out on his new job that will move the season forward. We also get introduced to the allusion to cloning with Dr. Pershing. Also, the introduction of Beskar as a method of payment. There's mention of the Great Purge, basically meaning when the Empire got rid of most Mandalorians. There's mention of foundlings, what they represent, and Mando's flashback. The Mandalorian myth by everyone he meets, from at the bar at the beginning of the season, the Mithril, the client, Quill. Everyone brings up he's a Mandalorian and what that represents to them. There's a great action scene between Mando, IG-11, and the Nikto bounty hunters on Arvala 7 to end the episode. So yeah, it's a great pilot and thus great to introduce the Mandalorian and the world. So some of the things I like starts right at the beginning with that tracking fob beep during the intro. As soon as it shows up, you know exactly what it is and what it means. The Mandalorian's introduction in the cantina scene, it sets up the mood of the series and his attitude. His music theme, that little whistle and kind of three-quarter kind of notes when he enters a scene is great. I love the look of the Quarren in the bar, the guy that he chops in half with the doors closing on him. Of course, we get the great quote, I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold, which is a great introduction to a series of memorable quotes in the series. It sets up his dislike of droids from the get-go. And I also really enjoy the subtle look of space while flying the Razor Crest, and you just see the blackness out there and then just the blurred stars is something we really haven't seen in Star Wars too much. Oh, and of course, the official use of carbonite as a mode of delivery for bounties. We first saw this on Empire Strikes Back when Darth Vader tells Boba Fett that he's going to try carbonite on Han Solo to see if he survives the freezing process, to then try it on Luke. So we see that it did work, and now it's, I guess, a preferred method of moving bounties back and forth. All the different aliens we see when they get to the main planet, Nevarro, it's always great to see different aliens walking around. Everything with Grief Karga and the Bounty Hunter Guild. Grief, come on, man. He gets better with each episode he's in. I love when they're trying to see how to pay him. He doesn't want Imperial credits, so he can take Calamari Flan. I just love that name. The look of the beat-up stormtroopers with the client when Grief sends him to meet the client and get the special job. I just looked all the beat-up stormtroopers. And the client's smugness and overall attitude toward the Mandalorian and his culture just kind of sets him off. Of course, the armorer and the Mandalorian covert introduction is pretty cool. The cultural importance of Beskar to the Mandalorians, which we know from just kind of watching Clone Wars and just reading EU novels and stuff like that. We know how important Beskar is to them. Another great character introduced in the first episode is Quill, the Argonaut. And again, the second great quote, it's I have spoken. How many memes came from I have spoken and I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold? How Quill tests the Mandalorian and making sure he doesn't forget his Mando heritage is something that stood out in this episode. IG-11's attitude and how he moves, kind of his body rotates and his head moves one way with his eyes moving the other one, was a pretty cool way to make the kind of droid stand out. And the back and forth that IG-11 has with the Mando. And of course, every time he, he thinks they're going to be destroyed, and I will initiate self-destruct sequence. That was pretty awesome. And of course, the best part of the episode, the ending, the reveal of the child. So some dislikes from this episode. It's pretty early on. It's the Mithril, which is the first bounty that the Mandalorian gets. He looks pretty alien, but speaking basic instead of either Huttese or some other alien language kind of takes away from it a little bit. The general or the main score for the series does take a little bit getting used to. It doesn't sound like Star Wars too much. I know it does work as a Western kind of thing, but as you get through the episodes and through the series, you do get used to them. And it did take me a while to get used to the look of the blurgs. But apart from that, it's a pretty great episode and great way to start the series. So, Chapter 2, The Child, directed by Rick Famuyiwa and written again by Jon Favreau. It's a great follow-up to Chapter 1. The direction on this episode by Rick Famuyiwa is sublime. The subtleness, but also attention to detail. Right before the Trandoshans attack the Mandalorian, not only seeing their shadows and kind of jumping in the background, but also you get to see the reflection on the Mandalorian's helmet at one point. At that same time, the Mandalorian figures out that there are more bounty hunters after Baby Yoda. And also when we get Baby Yoda trying to heal Mandalorian, which we know comes back into play later in the season. We get to see more of the Jawa culture, and when Mandalorian has to try to barter with the Jawas to get his stuff back. Some of the things I liked, well, it all starts and ends with Baby Yoda. And I know it's officially called the child for right now, but come on, we all know it's Baby Yoda. Seeing Trandoshans again is pretty cool. And seeing the full range of the pulse rifle, including disintegration, which again goes back to The Empire Strikes Back when Darth Vader tells Boba Fett no disintegration. And yes, more on the pulse rifle in later episodes. For Jawas, they're just mean and jerks, and that's why they get disintegrated. I love the little baby pod following the Mando as he's trying to jump into the sandcrawler, or as he calls it, the crawling fortress. I also love Baby Yoda eating that whole frog, and the whole interaction with the Jawas, especially how they make fun of the Mandalorian's Jawa speak, and his kind of go-to is always to try to roast them. And Quill, as always, delivering great wisdom, not just to the Mando, but also to the Jawas. And Suka. The Jawas just calling for the egg. That's what they want. It's a great reveal, all the stuff he goes through, and it's just a treat for them. And of course, the battle at the end with the Mudhorn and the reveal of the child being force sensitive, and all of the questions that this raises. Is it, are all creatures from that species force sensitive? Is it just the child, Yoda, and Yaddle that are force sensitive? I think this is going to get explored, hopefully more in season 2. The only thing, that I dislike about this episode was the length. This is the shortest episode. I think it comes in at 33 minutes, and that's counting the intro and also all the credits at the end. One thing I didn't mention at the beginning, but the credits, the end credits of every episode with the artwork is just incredible. So moving on to Chapter 3, The Sin, directed by Deborah Chow and written by Jon Favreau. So how do you improve on Chapter 2? Easy, by making Chapter 3 The Sin, arguably the best episode of the season. It's Mandalorian galore. So if you love Mando culture, this is the episode for you. We get to go back to Navarro and the bounty hunter feel of the whole planet. All the aliens in the streets walking again. The client is very happy to see Baby Yoda, and we know that that's not a good sign. We don't know what he's planning to do with him, but seeing his reaction, we know it's not something good. And at the end, the power of a metal ball and how it turns a bounty hunter into a caring father figure. So some big likes for me. It's that we're back on Navarro, but this time seeing everything from Baby Yoda's perspective. Everything, the world looks so big to him, and just kind of looking from the bottom up. It's a great way to show this. The client still goating the Mandalorian with his comments about Beskar and Mandalorians in general. That it's easier to find Beskar than actual Mandalorians walking around. Of course, the Mandalorian getting his new Beskar armor from the armorer, and how the other Mandalorians react to this being made, especially from reclaimed Imperial smelts. It's great to see that kind of interaction between all the Mandalorians. And we get our third great quote for the series: "This is the way." And I think everyone's been using that since it was first said, back in late November. I love all the flashbacks and seeing the super battle droids again for the first time, and learning a little bit more of why the Mandalorian hates all the droids. Of course, Griff Karga again hamming it up when Mando walks into the bar with his new armor. I love the way he says "Mando, Mando." I just love I love that character so much, and he's just yelling it for everyone to hear. The Mandalorian going back for Baby Yoda and beating the crap out of those worn down troopers, and of course the big one for this episode is the final battle with all the bounty hunters getting first when all the tracking fobs start beeping one behind the other, and then all the Mandalorians showing up with jetpacks, of course, to come to the rescue. And again, this is the way. We get to see the pulse rifle again and disintegrating bounty hunters. All right, so moving on. Oh, wait, sorry, I forgot my dislike for this episode. Oh, no, not sorry. There's nothing to dislike from this episode. This, to me, is as perfect of a Mandalorian episode you can do. There's everything that we wanted or that we were kind of promised with all the teasers. So yeah, chapter 3, the scene is a great episode. So now we move to chapter 4, Sanctuary, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard and written again by Jon Favreau. This episode was quickly dismissed by a lot of fans as a filler or throwaway episode, but it does have some great character development for the Mandalorian. He starts to see himself as the child's caregiver. We learn more on his backstory, and there's also the great introduction of ex-Republic shock trooper Cara Dune. A lot of people compare the ATST scene to the T-Rex scene in Jurassic Park, and I do agree. That scene is more of a kind of monster movie with some great visuals. And this takes place on the planet Sorgan, and we have the Mandalorian and Cara Dune training local villagers to protect themselves against constant attacks from Klatooinian raiders. Mando goes to Sorgan to kind of hide out after the battle in Nevarro with all the other bounty hunters and the Mandalorians. He goes to this planet to hide out and kind of lay low for a couple of months, but we know that's not going to happen. So what did I like about this episode? Sanctuary, Baby Yoda playing with all the ship's controls at the beginning, trying to kind of turn everything on and off. I love how the Mandalorian tells Baby Yoda to stay in one place and not to touch anything, just like all of us parents do with our kids, and then 2 seconds later they're just standing next to you. We get a quick shot of a Lothcat that, if you're a Star Wars Rebels fans, you know they're pretty prominent on that show, and it was great to see them live action. Great to see that the Mandalorian's helmet also has heat vision as he's trying to find Cara Dune. And when they finally meet, Mando and Cara Dune meet and have that quick fight while Baby Yoda drinks his bone broth. Again, another memeable kind of sequence that has come out from this show. I love how the Mandalorian's go-to move when things aren't working out for him is try to fry everything with his flamethrower. In this episode, we also get confirmation that the Mandalorian does take off his helmet, but he only does it when he's by himself. And we also get confirmation that his parents were killed and the Mandalorians took him in. The whole ATST scene, like I mentioned, is basically a monster movie / alien invasion scene, kind of scoping out the area. We get to see the pulse rifle again disintegrate people and used to bring down the ATST. and finishing up with Baby Yoda just playing with all the children and just being a kid, and the Mandalorian starting to open up and be more kind of show his emotions and feelings a little bit more. So some things I disliked about this episode is it is a slower pace and a changing rhythm from what we're used to, especially from the first three episodes. The two Creole farmers who go to the Mandalorian to ask for help, I really didn't kind of click with them too much. This is not a dislike, but a critique that the Mandalorian tells Omera that he's never taken his helmet off in front of anyone since he was a kid, basically, and then 2 seconds later he's taking his helmet off about 5 feet away from everyone. So, yeah, I think you might want to take a little bit more of a chance making sure no one sees you. Also, there's been some critiques that this episode is similar to an episode of the Clone Wars when they also trained some locals to be on the lookout for rebels, not for rebels, but some raiders. And yeah, that ending, please don't put me again under that stress of thinking Baby Yoda is gonna get shot.